Toby, is this yet more legislation being put in the way of the bosses of businesses in the UK?
Yeah, I fear it is, Esther. I think you can understand the rationale behind this bill. The rationale is that croupiers, say, working in casinos, at the moment, employers aren't liable if they're harassed by punters, by customers of that casino. When this new workers' protection bill becomes law, employers will be liable, so they'll have to take steps to do what they can to prevent employees of casinos from being harassed by customers. So you can understand the rationale. It's designed to protect, in particular, women and girls. But there are going to be unintended consequences. And the Free Speech Union's real concern is about the impact this will have on external speakers at universities. And we're worried that it may lead to more no platforming. And the reason we're worried about that is that at present, visiting speakers at universities are third parties from the point of view of the Equality Act 2010. So if they say something that a student thinks constitutes harassment, often just because the student disagrees with what they're saying, that can't be at present a reason for no platforming the speaker. But when this new bill becomes law, what it will mean is that the university is liable if a student or member of staff feels harassed because they disagree profoundly with something that's going to be said by, or something that's being said by, a visiting speaker. So we're concerned that this could lead to fewer people being invited, fewer external speakers being invited onto campus to put forward contentious, controversial points of view that some students, some staff are likely to find offensive.
I guess, Toby, it all depends on what you define as a reasonable step for somebody to take to try and prevent it, which is in the bill, and obviously which ultimately would presumably be for a tribunal to decide. I mean, could the bill not be, people could say, well, that wasn't a reasonable step, that would have been a disproportionate
well, I'm
step.
thinking, going back to the example of a casino, I'm sure the security there, if anything was going wrong, they'd be removed. So I'm guessing there is a boss, a good boss would be doing it.
In terms of the free speech element of it, I mean, does it necessarily mean that your fears would be brought into account? It might be that nobody would think that would be a reasonable step, Toby, so maybe you should be reassured by that.
Well, I think there are some protections for free speech built into the Equality Act. As you say, Phil, it has to be reasonable for someone to claim that they feel harassed by a particular third party. And it might be that a student claiming that inviting, say, a gender-critical feminist like Kathleen Stock onto campus, if they say they feel harassed by the presence of someone whose views they find profoundly disagreeable, isn't reasonable. And so the university couldn't be expected to take reasonable steps to prevent the harassment of that student. And the Free Speech Union has been working with the Government Equalities Office to try and build various free speech protections into this workers' protection bill. And so if the speaker in question is just talking about a matter of social, moral, religious or political importance, and if they're not directly addressing the particular student who claims to feel harassed, then it wouldn't be reasonable for the university to take steps to prevent that harassment taking place. But we're concerned that those protections aren't robust enough. I mean, for instance, if a trans student asked a question of a visiting gender-critical feminist and the answer they received wasn't to their liking, because it would be a direct interaction between the student and the third party, the student, I think, could claim that they felt harassed, and it's not obvious that they wouldn't then have a claim, and the university might not then be in trouble.
You've just said in the past you've lost the argument, or you don't like the response, or you just weren't quick enough thinking on your feet. Isn't that, are we trying to protect everybody, but we'll end up protecting nobody?
Well, the way this kind of thing works, Esther, is, I mean, I know it sounds unreasonable to prevent speakers saying things contentious or controversial that some students or staff at universities will find disagreeable. Who would want to do that in a university? Universities are supposed to be places of open discussion and debate. But the problem is these laws, these regulations can be weaponized by political activists. They'll point to this change to the Equality Act and say it now covers third parties that are going to be vulnerable vulnerable students with protected characteristics who feel harassed if you invite this controversial speaker. Play it safe, don't invite them. That's our concern. It'll be how the law is interpreted and weaponized by political activists in collusion with people on the same side as them politically on the university administration.
Just very, very quickly, because we've run out of time already, but I just want to get your view. Front page of the Telegraph today is about the people in the Lords wanting to amend the online safety bill to make sure that online misogyny was not allowed, and that it was going back to the legal but harmful stuff to a certain extent, where companies who allowed it to happen would face a fine of 10% of their global turnover. What's your view of what the Lords are trying to do with that?
Well, I think, like the Workers' Protection Bill, it's understandable. You can see what they're trying to do, and I'm sure it's coming from a good place, but the worry is unintended consequences. And the $6 million question here is, would misogyny include people misgendering trans women, for instance, refusing to use their preferred gender pronouns, saying they don't think trans women are women? If you defined trans women as women, if you make it easier for people to self-identify as a different gender in law, as they're doing in Scotland, then would criticism, perfectly legitimate criticism of trans ideology, would a refusal to use a trans woman's preferred gender pronouns because you don't think it's possible to change sex, would that count as misogyny? And would that be criminalised?